When I was in grade 5, we had an election for class president. I wanted to run because the winner got to write the grade 5 newsletter. He or she would get the keys to the school canteen and supply room and enjoy a few other executive perks as well. But why I really ran was to impress Cindy, the cute new girl that sat at the front of the class. My presidency didn't last long. I guess 2 weeks after the election there was a major theft. Someone, and they said it was an inside job, stole 7 large shipping boxes of chocolate bars, which were destined for the yearly school fundraiser. There was so much finger-pointing I just quit. My school year got even worse from there. By October, I was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. In November, Cindy said I was too fat for her to go bike riding with me. In early December, I was hauled into the principal's office. I was asked point blank if I had anything to do with the chocolate bar theft. Then I remembered what my friend had told me he learned from his father, who happened to be a Republican fundraiser. He said, when you're in trouble, getting out is easy. Just deny everything, then lie like hell. So I tried it. The principal tried to outsmart me. He told me to look in the mirror and tell myself if I did it or not. I looked in the mirror. I should have combed my hair. Next I noticed that I had chocolate smudged on my lips and a big piece of melting caramel nougat kind of dripping off my lapel. But what really gave me away, and I am not positive, but I had 2 Snickers bars protruding from my shirt pocket. There was that. Inside, I was starting to panic, but I echoed the words I had recalled from Perry Mason the night before. I looked into the principal's eyes and said, either you charge me now or let me go. I know my rights. He let me go. And that was the last I heard about it, well, except for when Dad ran around like a lunatic the next spring, wondering how 500 candy bar wrappers ended up in the well. I digress. Years later, I was still enjoying the fact I got away with it. Then I thought about my friend's father's advice, lie and deny, and acknowledged to myself that it had worked. I tucked that nugget of knowledge away, and when it was time to vote, I went with the Republican Party. Folks, this has been a made-up story to illustrate that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This tale was just a story, a fabrication, a spin, but here is a real example of Republican corruption and shame, just to drive this point home.
In the latest chapter of the Republican primary race, Donald Trump has once again demonstrated his dominance within the party by securing a decisive victory in the South Carolina primary, overtaking Nikki Haley, the state's former governor, and further solidifying his position as the front-runner for the Republican nomination. The victory in South Carolina marks Trump's continued success in the early primary contests, underscoring the significant challenge Haley faces in her quest for the nomination.
Despite her efforts, which included outspending Trump and maintaining a vigorous campaign schedule in her home state, Haley's campaign suffered a setback with this loss, her 4th in a series of major state primaries. The Associated Press called the race for Trump shortly after the polls closed, with preliminary results showing Trump leading with a substantial margin of the votes counted.
Trump, addressing supporters at a primary night event, spoke of the unity within the Republican Party under his leadership and expressed eagerness for the upcoming November election. Without directly mentioning Haley, Trump's remarks seemed to take a subtle jab at his primary opponent, who, despite the night's results, vowed to continue her campaign, emphasizing the support she still commands among Republican voters.
Trump's victory in South Carolina was bolstered by strong support from evangelical and rural voters, as well as endorsements from the state's leading Republican officials. This unified backing contributed to his substantial lead over Haley, despite her campaign and support of super PACs significantly outspending Trump's efforts in the state.
The South Carolina primary was relatively low-key, lacking the explosive ads and revelations that have characterized previous contests. However, the results have prompted some of Trump's supporters, including Senator Lindsey Graham and Governor Henry McMaster, to suggest that the primary race may effectively be over, with the Republican base largely coalescing around Trump.
Despite the challenges, Haley remains determined to present an alternative to both Trump and the likely Democratic nominee Joe Biden as she continues her campaign with an eye on Super Tuesday and beyond. Her resolve reflects a broader struggle within the Republican Party as it grapples with its identity and future direction in the lead-up to the 2024 presidential election. Now let's take the microphone out into the street and hear opinions from real Americans.
Jimmy Kimmel last night sent an interviewer to SC. She asked prospective voters, for example, what they thought of Joe Biden's relationship with a porn star. After the voters exclaimed how horrible that was, she said, "I'm sorry, I messed up. That was actually Donald Trump who did it." Suddenly, the SC voters thought that behavior was fine and forgivable since it was their guy doing it. I wouldn't have believed the sheer cognitive dissonance if I hadn't seen it live on camera. How can one possibly reason with such people? It's enough to make one sympathize with how the framers of the Constitution came up with the Electoral College. The Trump cult simply isn't ready for self-government.
I love Kimmel's guy that interviews MAGA. They have no idea just how, well, stupid they reveal themselves to be.
Can hardly wait for Trump to shame Haley for losing her home state. Any minute now we'll hear him rambling on about what kind of loser can't even win their own home state. And I, for one, can agree with him on that, wholeheartedly, ×2.
The king of stupid wins the endorsement of the stupider. What is newsworthy about this?
CNN exit poll. Did Biden legitimately win in 2020? Yes, 33%, no, 65%. The GOP must be crushed in November.
From the exit polls, it seems the smarter you are, the more likely you would be voting for Nikki. The dumber you are, the more likely you would be voting for the guy with the orange hair. And that is where we are in our country today. Stupid is what stupid does.
Joe Biden 2024.
Trump 24 years in prison.
55.6% versus 43.9% doesn't exactly look like a landslide when you consider all the evangelicals and conservative South Carolina oozes. Trump looks to be on shaky ground.
The Republican Party voters overwhelmingly want to elect a publicly bragging actual rapist President of the United States. And even his remaining Republican opponent promises to pardon him for any crimes and to also support him when he is the candidate. Just absolute madness.
Well, there seem to be a lot of folks leaning towards the Democrats. Maybe the Mango Mussolini. Old Pumpkin Puss himself is finished.
As a former judge observing the recent South Carolina Republican primary results, where Donald Trump emerged victorious over Nikki Haley, one can't help but reflect on the legal and ethical dimensions that underscore this election cycle. Trump's resounding win in South Carolina, despite his significant legal exposure, is a testament to his enduring influence within the Republican base. It raises crucial questions about the intersection of law, politics, and public opinion in our democratic processes. Firstly, Trump's ability to maintain a stronghold over a considerable segment of the Republican electorate, notwithstanding the 91 criminal charges across 4 indictments he faces, underscores a profound shift in how legal challenges are perceived in the political arena. Traditionally, such legal entanglements would be a significant hindrance to a candidate's campaign. However, Trump's narrative has seemingly transformed these liabilities into a rallying cry for his supporters, who view him as being persecuted by political adversaries. Secondly, Nikki Haley's continuation in the race despite the mounting odds speaks to the complexities of political commitment and the strategic calculations that underpin electoral campaigns. Haley's determination to press forward, even in the face of Trump's sweeping early victories, suggests a belief in a principled stance or a long-term strategy that transcends immediate electoral gains. Her emphasis on offering an alternative to both Trump and Biden highlights a critical juncture for the Republican Party as it grapples with its identity and future direction. From a legal perspective, Trump's campaign is a fascinating study of the impact of legal issues on political viability. The unprecedented nature of a leading presidential candidate facing such significant legal scrutiny poses unique challenges to the legal system and electoral integrity. It also raises questions about the role of the judiciary in potentially influencing political outcomes and the balance between legal accountability and political partisanship. Moreover, the Republican National Committee's RNC dynamics, especially the proposed changes to restrict the party from paying the legal bills of any candidate, and maintaining neutrality until a nominee is declared, reflect an underlying tension within the party. These proposals and the reactions to them indicate a struggle over the control and direction of the party, with significant implications for its approach to legal and ethical standards. In conclusion, the South Carolina Republican primary results, set against the backdrop of Trump's legal exposure, illustrate the complex interplay between law, politics, and public sentiment. As the country moves closer to the 2024 presidential election, these dynamics will continue to shape the political landscape, challenging traditional norms and prompting a re-evaluation of the principles that govern our democratic and legal institutions.
Well, that's it for our podcast today. Enjoy us at radioai.ca. The podcasts are super efficient. You can listen to them on the go using very little bandwidth, or you can download hundreds of them in a playlist into your smartphone for enjoyment when you want. Have a terrific day and try not to eat more than one Snickers bar per day.